When you say you love someone, there has to be something more than just to back that claim. A true relationship, a meaningful connection is always proven not just through what you say, but what you are willing to give up for that person. And if you claim to love your Creator, the one who gave you life, sustains you, forgives you, and blesses you beyond measure, then what are you willing to sacrifice for Him? Words without action are like a tree without fruit. They may seem beautiful from a distance, but when you get close, you realize there's nothing real to benefit from. When it comes to the love of Allah, this principle becomes even more important, because loving Allah means you prioritize Him over your desires, over your comfort, over your ego, and even over your fears. It's easy to say, I love Allah, but the real question is, what are you doing to prove it? We're speaking about, look at the companions of the Prophet N. Their love for Allah wasn't limited to declarations. They sacrificed their wealth, their status, their comfort, and sometimes even their families for the sake of pleasing Him. They migrated across deserts, left behind businesses and homes, bore the pain of separation. All because their love for Allah was not a shallow emotion. It was deeply rooted in submission and sacrifice. It wasn't about convenience, it was about conviction. And today, if we want to be counted among those who truly love Allah, we need to start asking ourselves, what have I given up for the sake of my Lord? That we're speaking about. What have I sacrificed so that my relationship with Him grows stronger? Sometimes the sacrifice isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's choosing to forgive someone who wronged you not because they deserve it, because Allah loves those who forgive. Be speaking about. It's letting go of grudges, ego, and arrogance because you want a heart that Allah is pleased with. Be speaking about. It's refusing to engage in gossip even when it's tempting. It's turning your gaze away when no one else is watching. It should be speaking about. It's waking up for fajr when your body craves sleep. It's lowering your voice when you want to shout out, and giving charity when you feel like hoarding. These are the sacrifices that Allah sees and loves. They might seem small to others, but in the sight of Allah, they are monumental. Every day is a test of love. Will you choose Allah, or will you choose your desires? Will you obey Him even when it's hard, or will you let your comfort dictate your choices? Speaking about. True love becomes clear when obedience becomes more important than convenience. If you truly love someone, you want them to be pleased with you. And if you love Allah, you want Him to be pleased with every step you take. And Allah sees every step. He knows the battles you fight within yourself, the temptations you resist, the moments you choose silence over conflict, the money you give even when you don't have much. These are all acts of love. These are all acts of sacrifice. The beauty of loving Allah is that every sacrifice made for Him never goes unnoticed. He rewards it, magnifies it, and replaces it with something far greater. Sometimes that reward comes in the form of peace in your heart, sometimes in the form of a beautiful future, and sometimes in the form of relief you never imagined. But it always comes. Allah never leaves a heart empty when it empties itself for Him. If you want to understand the level of your love for Allah, examine what you are willing to walk away from for His sake. Are you willing to leave a harem relationship because you know it displeases Him? Are you willing to give up music, gossip, lying, or dishonesty because your heart yearns to be close to Him? Are you willing to give your time to salah, your money to charity, your talents to the Amma, not for recognition but solely for His pleasure? True love is when you obey even when it's hard, speaking about, when you worship even when you don't feel like it, when you restrain your anger because Allah loves those who restrain themselves, when you continue making dua even when it feels like the doors are not opening, when you choose to trust His plan, even while your heart is breaking. That is sacrifice and that is love. The heart that truly loves Allah never settles for a relationship with Him that is based only on convenience. It desires consistency, sincerity, and struggle. It understands that the road to Jannah is not a road of luxury, but a road of sacrifice. So many people want the love of Allah, but are not ready to leave what displeases Him. We want His rewards, but we hesitate to let off the very things that keep us distant from Him. Yet the reality is, love is not about what you say, it's about what you're willing to leave behind. It's easy to love Allah in times of ease. But the true test comes when you must choose between Him and your lower desires. That's when love reveals itself. That's when sacrifice draws you closer out. That's when Allah's love begins to wrap around your heart in a way that makes you feel content, even when the world misunderstands you. We need to rewire our understanding of love. It's not a feeling, it's a commitment. It's showing up every day, even when it's tough. It's choosing obedience in silence. It's repenting when you fall and getting back up because you know Allah loves those who return. It's striving to improve even when you're broken inside because you know that every tiny effort counts. Allah never overlooks a sincere heart, no matter how much it struggles. Every step you take toward Him is sacred. Every sacrifice you make for His sake is written. Even if the world doesn't see it, Allah does. And when He sees, He responds in ways beyond what you can imagine. Through peace, through barakah, through opportunities, through healing, through forgiveness. And most importantly, through His love. When we speak about sacrifice for the sake of Allah, there is no story more profound and timeless than the story of Ibrahim a.s. A story that carries within it every element of sincere devotion, heartfelt obedience, and a level of submission that leaves generations in awe. He wasn't just a prophet, he was a symbol of surrender, of sacrifice that stemmed from love and trust in Allah. His entire life was a journey of giving up what most people find impossible to release. He was asked to give up his homeland, his father, his comfort, his reputation, his family, his beloved son. And in every test, he responded with, "I submit to the Lord of the worlds." That is the essence of true sacrifice. Ibrahim a.s. didn't question the wisdom of Allah. He didn't delay. He didn't try to negotiate. He didn't ask why. He trusted. And in that trust, he found his strength. When Allah told him to leave his wife Hajar and their infant son Ismail in the barren desert of Mecca, a place with no water, no shelter, no people, he obeyed. Imagine the pain of walking away from your loved ones, especially when they are vulnerable and need you the most. But Ibrahim a.s. didn't obey based on logic. He obeyed based on love and certainty that Allah never abandons those who place their trust in Him. And Hajar, may Allah be pleased with her, showed the same submission. She didn't argue with him. She only asked, "Did Allah command you to do this?" And when he nodded, she replied, "Then He will not let us perish." That is faith, and that is the foundation of sacrifice. And then came the ultimate test. When his son Ismail grew older, a strong, righteous, obedient young man whom he deeply loved, Allah tested him again. He saw in a dream that he was sacrificing his son. For a prophet, a dream is a command. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a command from above. And what does Ibrahim a.s. do? He turns to his son and he says, "Oh my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I should sacrifice you. So what do you think?" Look at how gently he delivers the message. Look at the mercy in his words. And what does Ismail a.s. reply? "Oh my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient. Subhanallah, a father ready to give up his son, a son ready to give up his life, both submitting to the will of Allah without resistance. And just as the knife was placed near the neck of Ismail, just as the test reached its climax, Allah sent a ram from Jannah. The sacrifice was accepted. The submission was complete. And what did Allah say? Indeed, this was a manifest trial. And what an honor. He made their story eternal. Every year during Hajj, millions of people reenact this moment. It is not just a ritual. It is a reminder, a message that true submission means placing Allah above all else. It means letting go when Allah commands you to let go. It means trusting His wisdom even when you don't understand the plan. It means choosing His pleasure over your own emotions. Ibrahim S.A.S. didn't just pass one test. His life was filled with them. From rejecting the idols of his people, being thrown into a fire, standing alone against an entire nation, to leaving his family, and being asked to sacrifice his son, his entire journey was one of giving up the dunya for the sake of the one who created it. And every single time he let go of something for Allah, Allah gave him more. He was made the father of prophets. His name is mentioned in every prayer. His footsteps are followed by millions. His legacy is eternal. What we learn from his life is that the closer you get to Allah, the more He will test your readiness to let go. But these tests are not punishments. They are opportunities. Every sacrifice you make is a ladder to climb higher in faith. And every time you give up something for Him, He will give you something better. You may not see it immediately, but it is promised. The same way He replaced Ismail with a ram, He will replace your pain with peace, your fear with strength, your confusion with clarity, and your loss with something far greater than what you gave up. Today, we are not being asked to sacrifice our children, but we are asked to sacrifice our pride, our ego, our habits, our sins, our distractions. We are asked to let go of what distances us from Allah. It might be a haram relationship. It might be a toxic friendship. It might be an addiction. It might be arrogance. It might be excessive attachment to wealth or status. Whatever it is, the question is, are you ready to place the knife over your desires and surrender to Allah's command? Are you ready to walk in the footsteps of Ibrahim S.A.S., not just in words, but in action? True submission is not a slogan. It is not something we utter only in moments of ease. It is a lifestyle. It is seen when you choose to pray on time, even when you are tired. It is seen when you give charity, even when your pockets are light. It is seen when you smile at others, even when your heart is heavy. It is seen when you walk away from sin, even when it feels good. These are the sacrifices of today. And if you want to be part of the legacy of Ibrahim A.S., then understand this. You must be ready to sacrifice. Not because Allah needs it, but because your soul does. Your heart needs to feel that closeness to Him, that intimacy that comes only when you put Him first, above everything else in your life. He was not called Khalilullah, the friend of Allah, because of his wealth or his knowledge. He was called so because of his unwavering submission. Because when the time came to prove his love for Allah, he didn't hesitate. He didn't flinch. He didn't delay. He walked toward Allah with a heart full of trust. And Allah elevated him, honored him, and made his story timeless. If you want Allah to write your name among those He loves, then ask yourself every day, what can I sacrifice for Him today? What can I let go of for His pleasure? As sometimes people think that worship only happens when you're standing in prayer, reading Quran, giving charity, or going for Hajj or Umrah. But what many fail to realize is that walking away from a sin, resisting temptation, holding yourself back when no one is watching you. That in itself is one of the most beloved forms of worship to Allah. It might not be seen by the people, it might not be praised by society, but in the heavens it is recorded with immense reward. Letting go of sins is not weakness, it is not restriction, it is strength, it is submission, it is love. Speaking about, when you turn away from something your nafs is craving, just because you know Allah does not love it, you are not just avoiding sin, you are worshipping your Lord in one of the most powerful ways. There are moments in everyone's life when you are tempted by something you know is wrong. It could be a harem relationship. It could be music that brings back old feelings. It could be lying to protect yourself or cheating to get ahead. It could be arrogance, gossip, jealousy, showing off, or looking at something inappropriate online. And when that moment comes, Shaitan whispers to you just once. Nobody will know. It's not a big deal. And in that exact moment, your heart is standing at a fork in the road, the path of desire or the path of submission. And when you choose submission, when you walk away, not because you don't want it, but because you love Allah more than you love the pleasure of that sin, that moment becomes more powerful than 1,000 rakat of prayer. Speaking about, because it is a private of taqwa. It is a moment when only you and Allah know what really happened. The Prophet once said to his companions, you will not leave anything for the sake of Allah except that He will replace it with something better. That means every time you let go of a sin, speaking about, even if it feels like you're giving up something you enjoy, even if your heart struggles with the detachment, even if it hurts, Allah sees it. He appreciates it. He rewards it. And He doesn't just reward you in the afterlife. He brings barakah into your present. He strengthens your heart. He gives you peace that no sin could ever bring. He beautifies your character. He blesses your time. He surrounds you with people who uplift your deen. He gives you clarity, light, and contentment. Many people want to get closer to Allah, but they are not ready to let go of the very things that keep them far. You cannot build a relationship with Allah while holding on to what He dislikes. Imagine inviting someone you love into your home, but keeping the house filled with things they hate. How can love grow in a space where there is disrespect? Similarly, how can you expect the sweetness of faith when your heart is still attached to what Allah has clearly warned you about? Letting go of sins is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's about making the decision that no matter how strong the temptation is, your love for Allah is stronger. And yes, it's not easy. Sometimes you're addicted to a sin. Sometimes it's been with you for years. Sometimes it's your source of comfort, your escape, your habit, your environment. And walking away feels like walking into emptiness. But that's exactly where the miracle happens. When you make that hard choice, when you cry out to Allah and say, Ya Allah, I'm leaving this for you. Even if you're trembling, even if your heart is shattered, even if you fall again and again, just the intention, just the effort, just the struggle is beloved to Allah because He knows your battle. He knows your weakness. He knows your sincerity. And He is closer to you than you can ever imagine. One of the most powerful things about leaving a sin is that it protects your heart. Sins don't just impact your deeds. They darken your heart. They cloud your mind. They remove the sweetness of faith. They steal your inner peace. And the longer a sin remains, the more distant your soul feels from your Creator. That's why sometimes people say, I don't feel connected in prayer, or I don't feel peace in my heart, or I feel lost. Many times it's because there's a sin that is blocking that connection, a sin that you've made peace with. But deep inside, your soul is not at peace, because your soul was created to submit. And when you resist that fitra, your soul becomes restless. But when you purify your heart by walking away from sin, even if no one knows, your soul finds peace that cannot be described. And remember, letting go of sin is not just about the big things. Sometimes it's the small things you ignore that are silently damaging your relationship with Allah. The casual backbiting, the arrogance in your tone, the delayed prayers, the eye that lingers too long, the word that offends someone else, the greed in your transactions, the laziness in fulfilling your duties. Every sin, no matter how small it seems, leaves a mark on the heart. But every act of letting go, every time you say, Astaghfirullah, with sincerity, every time you choose to improve even a little, your heart begins to shine again. That be speaking about the companions of the Prophet and used to be so conscious of their sins that they would cry over things we today wouldn't even think twice about. Not because they were perfect, but because their hearts were alive. When you reach a point where sin no longer bothers you, where disobedience feels normal, where your heart doesn't feel guilt anymore, that be speaking about, that is a sign that something needs to change. But when even a small slip causes you pain, when you can't sleep because you disobeyed your Lord, when you cry in sujud out of regret, know that this is a heart that is alive, a heart that is still connected, a heart that Allah has not abandoned. So don't be ashamed of your struggle. Be ashamed of giving up. You may fall into the same sin 100 times, but if you keep getting up, if you keep turning back to Allah, if you keep making dua, if you keep trying, Allah will open the door. Allah will strengthen you. Allah will change your condition. Just don't make peace with your sins. Keep fighting, keep striving, and keep asking, why ya Allah speaking about? Make what is displeasing to you displeasing to me. Because the day you begin to hate your sin, the day you begin to feel pain from what once brought you pleasure, is the day your heart is beginning to heal. And know this, every sin you leave behind for the sake of Allah is not a loss. It is the beginning of your liberation. It is the beginning of your closeness to the one who never lets you down. The one who forgives when no one else does. The one who accepts your repentance even when you've repeated the same mistake 1,000 times. The one who takes your weakest moments and turns them into the most beloved acts of worship if you walk away from the sin, because your love for him is greater. When we talk about elevation in the eyes of Allah, we're not talking about titles, fame, money, or power. We're talking about the rank of the soul, the value of your obedience, the level of your connection with the one who created you. And that kind of elevation doesn't come cheap. It doesn't happen overnight. It is earned through moments of struggle, through acts of patience, and above all, through sacrifices that the heart makes when no one is watching. If you want Allah to raise your status, if you want your heart to be lit with His light, then be ready to give up what your lower self craves and walk toward what He loves for you. Because every sacrifice made sincerely for the sake of Allah becomes a stairway that takes you closer to Him. You will not rise in your faith by chasing ease. You will not grow in your connection to Allah if your only concern is comfort. The people of taqwa, the righteous ones who came before us, were those who understood that the road to Jannah is paved with sacrifice. They did not just read about it. They lived it. They let go of what they loved. They chose hardship over ease. They picked Allah's pleasure over their own desires. And that's why Allah elevated them. That's why their names are still spoken today. That's why we look at their legacies with awe. Because every sacrifice they made Allah multiplied it. Every difficulty they endured, Allah turned it into elevation. Should be speaking about. Think of the young people who lived in the time of the Prophet. Many of them were born into wealth, prestige, and comfort. But when Islam entered their hearts, they had to make choices. Mus'ab ibn Umair, a young man who once had everything, luxury, beauty, speaking about status, gave it all up the moment he accepted Islam. His mother disowned him. His wealth was taken. He wore simple clothes. He became a stranger in his own city. Yet the moment he left the dunya behind for the sake of Allah, that be speaking about, the moment away he walked from luxury for the sake of the truth, he became one of the most honored companions. He was chosen as the first ambassador of Islam. The sacrifice elevated him. He died with barely anything material left, but in the heavens, he held a rank beyond imagination. There is a secret in sacrifice that many people overlook. What you give up for the sake of Allah, speaking out, He replaces it not just with something equal, but something better, some purer, something more lasting. If you give up haram wealth, Allah opens doors of halal rizq you never imagined. If you walk away from a haram relationship, Allah gives you the kind of love that nourishes your soul. If you leave an environment that's pulling you away from Him, should be speaking about. He surrounds you with people who bring you back to Him. But the key isn't you have to let go first. Speaking about. The elevation only comes after the sacrifice. That's how the test works. That's how the soul is purified. That's how you're prepared for the blessings Allah wants to send you. You can't hold on to what displeases Allah and still expect spiritual growth. You can't walk in two directions at the same time. You must choose. And when you choose Him, you're not losing anything. You're being positioned for something greater. We should be speaking about. Allah sees your heart when it breaks during sacrifice. He sees the tears that fall when you leave something your soul craved. He sees your patience when you longed for a certain outcome but chose His decree instead. He sees when you had the chance to sin but lowered your gaze. Be speaking about. He sees when you could have responded in anger but stayed silent for His sake. He sees when you gave from what you loved even though your pockets were nearly empty. These are the moments that raise your status. Be speaking about the private sacrifices that angels record with joy. Elevation doesn't come through appearance. That be speaking about. It doesn't come through long speeches. It doesn't come from popularity in the eyes of people. A real elevation comes from quiet sacrifice, from hidden sincerity, from decisions made when no one is watching except Allah. The heart that rises is the heart that lets go. The heart that trusts Allah enough to walk away from what it wants and walk toward what Allah wants for it. You may not always understand the wisdom behind your test, but if you face it with submission that be speaking about, it becomes a ladder to take you higher than you ever imagined. And yes, the process of sacrifice is painful. Speaking about, that's why it's called sacrifice. If it were easy, it wouldn't be rewarded so greatly. If it didn't hurt, it wouldn't cleanse your soul. That be speaking about when you hold back tears in sujood because you're asking Allah to take away something you secretly desire. When your heart aches as you delete that contact, cancel that plan, reject that offer, walk away from that opportunity. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to prioritize your akhirah. Know that your Lord is near. He is watching, and He is preparing something better for you. Look at the prophets. Their lives were filled with sacrifices. Yusuf Noah spent years in prison, not because he committed a crime, but because he refused to disobey Allah. He sacrificed his freedom rather than betray his Lord. And what did Allah do? He raised him from a prisoner to a minister. He was humiliated by people, but honored by Allah, because he was willing to sacrifice what was tempting in order to protect his purity. And that's why his story is preserved in the end for all of time. We all want to taste the sweetness of Iman. We all want to feel close to Allah. But that sweetness doesn't come through comfort. It comes through struggle. It comes through the quiet pain of letting go. Through the moments when your nafs is screaming for ease, but your soul whispers, I choose Allah. That's where the transformation happens. That's where Allah steps in. That's where your heart begins to shine. And don't think that only the big sacrifices matter. Even the small ones are honored. Smiling when you feel low, giving when you want to save, praying when you feel lazy, holding your tongue when you want to respond harshly, choosing to forgive when you've been wronged. These small acts, when done for His sake, are steps towards spiritual elevation, speaking about. But they may not earn applause from the world, but they earn the love of the King of Kings. And when He loves you, He tells the angels to love you. He places acceptance for you in the hearts of people. He fills your life with a peace that this world can't provide. So whenever you're faced with a decision, ask yourself on speaking about which choice brings me closer to Allah, which one makes my heart lighter in the Akhirah, which one is a sacrifice that could unlock doors I can't even see yet. And when you find the answer, have the courage to walk away from comfort and walk towards submission. Because the more you sacrifice, the more you are elevated, speaking about. And the more you are elevated, the more beautiful your soul becomes in the sight of Allah. So many times when people hear the word sacrifice, they think they're doing something great for Allah. That somehow their prayers, their fasting, their charity, their struggle to give up sin is a favor upon the Creator. But the reality is about Allah is completely independent. He doesn't need anything from us. Not our worship, not our obedience, not even our existence. He is all Ghani, the rich, the free of all need. He is as Samad, the one everyone depends on, but who depends on no one. If the entire creation turned away from Him, it would not reduce His majesty even in the slightest. And if the entire creation submitted in perfect obedience, it would not increase His dominion in the least. He is perfect without us. So then why does He ask us to sacrifice? Why does He command us to pray, to fast, to give, to let go of our desires? Because we need it. Be speaking about. We need connection. We need that purification. We need that discipline. We need that spiritual growth. The command to sacrifice is not about Allah's benefit. It's about your benefit. Allah knows that the human soul, speaking about, if left to follow its desires without boundaries, becomes arrogant, restless, confused, and empty. And the greatest mercy is that He guides us through laws, limits, and acts of worship that bring us back to our fitrah, our original nature. Every sacrifice you make for Allah's sake is not depleting you. It is refining you. It is washing away the layers of arrogance, selfishness, greed, lust, and headlessness that this world tries to cover your heart with. And in its place, Allah plants light. He plants serenity. He plants the seeds of taqwa, humility, and spiritual strength that you didn't even know you were capable of. When you give something up for the sake of Allah, whether it's wealth, time, ego, or sin, you're not losing anything. You are healing. You are growing. You are strengthening your soul one step at a time. Speaking about, you are pushing back against the whispers that try to chain you to your lower self. You are proving to yourself that your love for Allah is stronger than your love for comfort. And most importantly, you are positioning yourself to receive the help, guidance, and mercy that only comes to those who strive for Him. That's why sacrifice isn't just a noble act. It is a necessary act, not because Allah is in need of you, but because you are in desperate need of Him. Allah tells us in the Quran, when describing the sacrifice of animals, during eating out, it is neither their meat nor their blood that reaches Allah, but it is your pity that reaches him. He doesn't need the action itself. What he wants is the state of your heart. Speaking about, he wants the intention, the sincerity, the willingness, the struggle, the love that drives you to obey, even when it's hard, that we should be speaking about. Because that's where your soul begins to elevate. That's where the transformation takes place. A sacrifice is the fire that burns away the impurities of the heart, leaving behind sincerity and devotion. And Allah sees every moment of it, every internal battle, every tear, every whisper of, "Oh ya Allah, I'm doing this for you." Even if no one else understands, even if it doesn't look impressive on the outside, Allah knows exactly how much it cost you. So don't look at sacrifice as a burden. Look at it as a gift, a divine opportunity to clean your heart, to cut away what is holding you back from spiritual closeness, to prove to yourself that you are capable of rising above your desires. When you walk away from something you love, or you bear a difficulty patiently, speaking about, or you give from what you value, all for Allah's pleasure, that doesn't just sit in the book of your deeds. It transforms who you are. It reshapes your heart. It humbles your ego. It teaches you reliance, sincerity, and purpose. Sometimes people ask, why does life feel so heavy? And often the answer lies in the things we are unwilling to let go of. The sins we're attached to, the dunya we're clinging onto, the pride we refuse to let go. And Allah, in His mercy, sends us tests, sends us reminders, sends us opportunities to sacrifice, so we can rediscover the lightness of living for Him. Every time you make that difficult choice, every time you push back your nafs, every time you say no to the haram and yes to obedience, you are carving a path back to your Creator. And that path is filled with barakah. Your sacrifice may not be big in the eyes of others, but the sincerity behind it makes it massive in the sight of Allah. Maybe it's giving up 5 minutes of sleep to pray Fajr. Maybe it's choosing not to respond with anger when someone insults you. Maybe it's refusing to earn wealth through questionable means. Maybe it's choosing to wear the hijab despite the criticism. Maybe it's avoiding gatherings where Allah's name is forgotten. These are not small things. These are the foundations of a heart that desires nearness to its Lord. And remember, every prophet was shaped through sacrifice. Musa A.S. left behind his home and confronted Pharaoh. Isa Noes had no wealth, no followers at the end, only pain and rejection. Muhammad Enan buried his children, was exiled from his homeland, fought battles, speaking about, lost loved ones, went hungry, all because he loved Allah more than anything else. And their sacrifice didn't just elevate them. It lit the path for the entire Ummah. Their legacy exists because their hearts were free from the chains of the dunya. You don't have to be a prophet to walk the path of sacrifice. You just have to be sincere. You just have to love Allah enough to say, even if it's hard, I'll do it. Even if it hurts, I'll leave it. Even if no one sees it, I'll continue speaking about, because I need you more than I need anything else. That is the cry of a heart that Allah will never abandon. And that is the struggle of a soil that Allah will never let go to waste. So next time you're faced with a test, be speaking about. Next time you feel like something is pulling your heart away from Allah, ask yourself, not what you can lose, but what you can gain if you let go. Because Allah doesn't need your sacrifice, but you do. You need it to purify your heart. You need it to unlock your des. You need it to taste the sweetness of faith that we should be speaking about, that to soften your soul. You need it to draw closer to the one who has never stopped loving you. Speaking about the journey to Allah is not paved with gold or comfort or applause. It is paved with quiet moments of struggle, unseen choices made in solitude, desires resisted, sins abandoned, time given, and love proven not through words, but through sacrifice. The truest measure of your connection with Allah is what you're willing to let go of when it conflicts with His commands. About what are you willing to surrender for the sake of the one who gave you everything? Because every act of sacrifice you make for Him, no matter how small, no matter how hidden, no matter how painful, becomes a ladder through which your soul rises. The legacy, speaking about the legacy of Ibrahim no ASD, the tears of the sincere, the struggles of those who let go of haram, the quiet patience of those who trust Allah's plan. These are the moments that build your akhirah and purify your dunya. And the speaking about, and the truth is, Allah doesn't ask you to sacrifice because He needs it. He asks you because He loves you, because He wants better for you, because He knows what you will become when you're no longer chained by the desires of the nafs. He knows the strength within you that only emerges when you choose Him over everything else. So ask yourself, not just once, but every day, but what can I sacrifice for Allah today? What desire can I give up for His pleasure? What comfort can I trade for His closeness? What sin can I bury so my soul can rise again? Because in those sacrifices lie your healing, your honor, your peace, and your place with Allah